one, I'm going to do a butterfly. We'll do that one on the blue. So again, I'm going to lay that on my blank and be sure to get the graphite side of the tracing paper down and try to keep it from sliding. So there we have our little butterfly. I think on this one I have this little stencil. This is a Lori Spelt stencil, and it's got this little background here, and I think that would be pretty on this butterfly because it's kind of scrolly and reminds me of a butterfly path. So I'm just going to position that over my background and just clean my stippler brush out. We'll get as much of the water out of there as possible so we don't have that bleeding. And I'm going to do this one again in white. I want my butterfly to be kind of light and airy, so it helps to, when you're stenciling, to make sure your stencil's laying as flat as possible on your surface so that it's less likely to get paint under the edges. So you might have to move your fingers around a little bit as you work on something like this one that has a lot of cutouts, just to hold each section down. Just pick that up a little bit. So there, that looks really pretty. Let's go back to working on our outlining. And I think on this one I'm going to go back to just the black and white. And I'm using the ultra fine point pen. And I'm going to outline the butterfly's body and wings. Here's the antenna. When you're outlining, you have to kind of keep turning so you can keep your eye on the transfer line. It's hard to, sometimes my hand gets in the way, so I have to keep repositioning so I'm sure that I'm staying on the pattern line. And now to come up with some patterns to go in this. And butterfly wings are always divided into a lot of segments. So we can just work in some sections. So I'm going to create a little divider here at the top of this wing, curve it in and come up to a point and curve it back down. I'm going to put a circle in here. And I think we'll continue this on down so it's like a kind of a feather shape here in the middle. So these little parts here, we could continue them on up and make a scroll, like kind of follows the pattern of our antenna. We could do that on both sides. I'm going to fill this in with a little triangle and stripes. So maybe we'll draw like a stem down through here. And swing little lines up following that contour. And these can be as detailed or not as you want, so maybe we create some paisleys. Here on this outer edge. So that makes a pretty wing, and you can repeat that on this side. I'm not going to go through every little thing. I think you've got the general idea of this. Let's put maybe some little eyes on our butterfly, and we'll do a pattern here, like a diamond pattern on its back. I'm just going to keep repeating that diamond inside till we fill in and put a dot in the middle and do some dots down to the tail. Maybe some segments. Here a sort of a big comma stroke, and reverse that and make one coming back the other way. I'm just filling in with patterns. So crossbars and some stripes in between those. Do some scallops on the inside of our paisley, maybe to repeat the diamond on the back of the butterfly, we'll put some diamond shapes here in the center. So I've got 3 of those. We'll put a dot in the middle of each of them. On something like this where you're just continuing to fill in with, say, rings, we can maybe every other one will fill in with a solid black. We'll give a little more weight to these ends. Maybe we'll fill this big circle here in. And that helps balance this heavier dark down here. And maybe fill these dots here in. And again, you could dot these with black paint on your stylus or the end of a paintbrush. So repeat that on the other side for your wings so that they're symmetrical. And then you can see what our butterfly design would look like on here. If you wanted to add a little color, let's see, I'm going to take a little round brush. We could always pick up a little bit of our blue color, and that was ultramarine blue with a little bit of white. But if you want to do something like color in the butterfly's head, give a little color to his body, maybe fill in some of these diamonds on his back, alternate those. Maybe squares on the bottom of his tail. You can do that and just, adds just a little bit of color, touches of color to him. Not as much as we did on the bumblebee, but just some little accents. I'm just keeping these very light and transparent so they don't overpower the design. Filling around these little diamonds. So that gives you an idea of what our butterfly is going to look like. And then I was going to show that, if you don't want to do all the Zentangle type designs on these, you can also just utilize any of the stencils that you have. I've got this one here. This is a Tracy Moreau stencil from Deco Art. And this one is a real pretty butterfly. And let's see, we'll do this on see if it'll fit on this green one. This green one, I've picked the one that has the laser cut scroll at the bottom. I think that's really pretty. But we could just put that butterfly on here. Stencil that in. I have this warm Indian yellow that's real pretty. We'll put that on the wings. It does help if you have a clean brush. My brush still has some of that, I think, black in it from when we were doing the stripes on the bumblebee background. And for the body, I'm going to pick up a little bit of gray. And I didn't even bother to clean my brush. I'm just letting a little bit of that yellow show through. And I'm going to stencil the little antennas and the body with that medium gray. So we'll do a little bit of outlining on this when it dries. And you can see again that is a real pretty little note card or gift card holder. And we had it done in just a few seconds. It doesn't take long. Maybe we want to, again, add a pattern to the background. On this one, I'm going to, on the background, I'm going to repeat the butterfly, but I'm going to let it sort of fall off the top edge of this background. And I'm going to do it in the yellow with a touch of white, just so that it's just a soft color that kind of coordinates with the butterfly on the front, but I want this very light, so I'm going to put it on very soft and open. I don't want it to be a solid stencil. Just kind of the suggestion of a butterfly back there. And then we'll pick up just a touch of the gray. And I'm using just a shade lighter of the gray, the light value, so that it's a softer version of what's on the front. So there you see we have just a butterfly going off in the other direction on the back, and this brighter butterfly here on the front. Now when that's dry, you can add as little or as much detail as you want to this one on the front. So say we just kind of lightly outline the body, and I'm just going to keep it kind of broken and sketchy, so it kind of reflects the looseness of this pattern. So I'm just picking up and dragging the pen so that I'm not getting a solid line. So we're going to go a little bit around the wings. Just doing some little cross lines on the body. And if you wanted to do some little sketchy like flight lines or whatever, you can do that on the background. I think that's all that one needs. Repeat the ladybug on this one, but this time we're going to do her a little differently. We're going to paint her in red before we do all the outlining. We're going to do her more like we just did the butterfly. So I'm going to trace her down. Okay, and then we're going to paint her in a little bit with some reds and blacks. So again, I don't want this to be a real solid painted ladybug. So I'm just going to do a wash of these colors. So I just got like a wash of black on a little angle brush, and I'm gonna paint in her body, and we'll paint her head this color. So you can see it's more of just a watercolor look. I'm not even worrying too much about getting my edges real smooth, just and then we're going to paint her head the same way. If you want a little bit more definition here on the back, we can go back and sort of side load a little darker edge up along where the wing will be. So as I said, this isn't a real solid, even coat. It's just kind of a watercolor effect. Some variation. And then we're going to do the same thing with red, but we're going to do it on the wings. So I'm using some Naphthol red, and I'm just going to color in those wings. We're getting ready to have a storm here if you hear thunder. I'm sitting here by a window watching the storm come in from the west. So I'm just brushing this on and trying to smooth it out as best as I can. I don't care if it's a real even coverage again. I just want sort of a watercolor washy background. So we'll come in and do the other wing. And when I'm smoothing this out, I'm just barely touching the surface just to drag that paint a little bit so it's filling in, but not dragging it back off the surface. So there we've got our little ladybug washed in. She looks real pretty. And we're gonna let this stuff dry. We can't do any ink on that right now, but I can go ahead and start doing the ink on like her antennae. And maybe do some little sketchy outlining around her. I'm just off the edge. I'm not on that wet paint. I just want to extend some of this outline out into the white edge. And again, it's just dragging it and having little broken lines. And we'll do some more on her body once that paint dries. I just like this little level of detail to outline the edges of her body. I don't know if you can see that I'm just off the edge of the color. Now while she's drying, let's go back and work on our background. And here you can see what she's going to look like on that black. And so I think it'd be pretty to put a little bit of this pinky red color in our background. And I think I'm going to use the same one that we used for the butterfly before, this little viney background with the hearts. And I'm going to use a little bit of red, or naphtha red, and I'm going to pick up a touch of white with that, so it'll make it a little more opaque, and it's going to pick up more the color of our ladybug.